Hello and welcome to the Building Digital Solutions stream by Elantis. I'm Victor Asachi, and together with our special guests, I will lead you through the topic of the future of the LoRaWAN technology. At Elantis, we help businesses to bridge tech leadership and tech talent gaps with modern IoT technology and software development practices, so you can scale, innovate, and monetize your product solutions. So today, I invite you to explore the topic of the IoT domain with my guest, Roy, partner at RAKwireless. Hello, Roy, and welcome to the Building Digital Solutions stream by Elantis.
Hi, good to see you.
It's a pleasure to have you today. So if you don't mind, let's start with a brief introduction about yourself and about your company.
Sure, so my name is Roy, originally from the Netherlands, and been living and working in China for almost 10 years now, and a good part of that for RAKwireless. So RAKwireless is a company specialized in IoT hardware. Now, what is IoT hardware, right? Because we all know IoT, but in fact it's so big that you can't actually define it all just into one word. So what we do, we focus on LoRaWAN connectivity. And it basically means, in a nutshell, that you can create a network that can reach for a very long distance, and that you can add devices to that network with that consume low power. On the contrast for that, it also means you cannot send too much data over there. So it's like specifically for certain applications. For example, smart cities, smart parking, smart metering. Take your electricity meter, your water meter, and so on. Those are typical applications that could, and maybe in some cases are already using LoRaWAN. So in terms of like our customer audience, that will be mostly the B2B audience. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I believe that for our audience, LoRaWAN could be something new to them. And the question here is, why do you think it is important for IoT businesses to understand what is this technology and how it can be applicable to their businesses?
Well, firstly, it depends, of course, what kind of business you are or what kind of solution integrator you are, right? If we take, for example, home automation, well, Zigbee has proven itself as being like a perfect technology to be used within home environments. You don't need too much distance. You can still have some data transferred over there, and it's easy to set up. So for homes, that's perfect. But then, for example, if you're looking for smart cities, if you would be using Zigbee or you will be using Wi-Fi, you will need many gateways to cover a large area. So then it becomes already less interesting. Not to mention that, for example, if you would be using Wi-Fi, the energy consumption would also be much higher. So if you would have something with a fixed power source, Wi-Fi could still be a solution for you. But then if you have something without a fixed power source, as well as maybe interference, then Wi-Fi maybe is also not a solution anymore. So it really depends on what kind of environment you are, what kind of solution you are looking for, and to match the right technology with that. And for smart cities, for utility measuring, for farms, for example, oil platforms, LoRa can be a solution because you can cover a large area with a small amount of gateways, with low power consumption on the end device side.
That's great. Thank you so much for diving this deep into the diversity of the connectivity solutions. Well, and if we already are talking about LoRaWAN, Zigbee, and Wi-Fi, which technology does your company leverage to power the devices you manufacture, and what factors influence this choice?
Well, yeah, as I just mentioned, like we are using LoRaWAN in most of our products, And well, the reason for this is quite interesting actually, because our the founder from this company, and the team that he started this business with, they all originated from the Wi-Fi industry. And so initially, when they created RAK was making some like Wi-Fi related products because they were familiar with that, right? So it made sense. But they also recognized that this market, yeah, you know, it was an existing market already and full with competitors, and not very easy to bring something new to the market that doesn't already exist, right? And even if you do, you have to do it at such a competitive price because, well, Wi-Fi was already getting so cheap by then. So basically, they were just looking for other opportunities, and that's when they came across LoRa, which by then was still very small. I would say that compared to, let's say, a Wi-Fi, LoRa is still very small and early stage in comparison. And so that's when they decided, okay, let's swift focus. Let's focus on LoRaWAN and see what we can do here. And what you can see in the live line from our company is that when we started this, the customers actually were typically makers. Makers are individuals that we say with passion for technology, and they would play around with this. They would provide us with lots of feedback on our forum and by email. The forum still exists today.
Oh, that's great.
Still a very good source of feedback for us. Yeah. Typically, they would take it to their companies where they would be working for as an engineer, like, hey, look at this. And that's actually how our company, like our customer audience, slowly grew from the makers to small businesses, and well, nowadays to the enterprises. Yeah. And what you saw was, like, in the beginning, the makers and the small businesses, they were evaluating, right? Just evaluating, what can this technology do? What can it do for me, my project, my company, and so on. And now we're at a stage where LoRaWAN is becoming more accepted and like an industry standard, and where like this time of evaluating has passed, and now it's like recognized, like, okay, this is a solid solution, a solid technology for this kind of application. So that's good. And you have seen the same thing with Wi-Fi, for example, right? Before it was just in a few computers, now it's in all your devices. So it's a very natural, like, life cycle for a technology or a product. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much for this guide to the history of how it was done. And as we already mentioned so many good things about the LoRaWAN technology, I guess there are some drawbacks as well. There must be something that people are struggling with during the implementation of the LoRaWAN technology. Would you share your experience or just what you know about the troubles and negative feedback, or possibly the challenging feedback, I would call it better this way, people faced during the LoRaWAN technology implementation?
Well, yeah, sure. I think there are always some challenges with any kind of technology. I mean, there are always limitations, right? Like, one of the limitations with LoRa is that the data you can transfer, unlike, for example, a Wi-Fi, is very little. So the packet size that which you can send over, it's very little. So you cannot watch a video using LoRa. It's impossible. It would take you weeks to load it, if not longer. So small packet size. So that could be, for certain applications, that could be a drawback, because maybe certain applications have a big payload, or they have a very high frequency interval. Then LoRa may not be the right solution. Or they would have to change the interval or change the strategy completely. I would say the other challenge that that customers face is that LoRa is complex, as in you have many different settings that you can set, and you can't possibly know them all. It's quite complex, and so what we try to do, our slogan is IoT made easy. So what we try to do, or what our team try to do every day, is to make it as simple as possible for the customer. What does that mean? That means that if they buy a gateway from us, it's pre-configured in a way that basically you can connect something and you can make it work. And we also care a lot about security. So we also have like a basic set of, let's say, security features that by default are activated, so that your device is safe, your gateway, no matter it's a public or private environment, and that the settings for your network are already pre-configured so that you can get started relatively quickly. And you may just have to change one or two things according to your taste or preferences, but it would already work out of the box. But moving forward, and I think actually that's the case with every kind of technology, we need to try to keep making things simple, explain it simple, have documentation available, and of course, like active support, so that when anyone still faces an issue, that we can still help out. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. That was a really good explanation. And what I can definitely understand is not a kind of a technology, if we talk about LoRaWAN in general, it's not a kind of a technology for everyday internet users, but it's more for specific industrial purposes, right?
Yes, correct. So typically our customers are B2B, and smart cities, farms, oil platforms, like where you need to measure something. Like I think the let's say the most used application is measurement. So that can be a temperature measurement, humidity measurement, air pressure, you name it, all kind of sensors that measure something that you want to, for example, load into a dashboard. You can use LoRaWAN for. So let's say you are a farmer, okay, and you want to know if the soil, if it has a certain like humidity or whatsoever. You can put a LoRaWAN sensor, a small battery on the ground, make sure it's connected to your network, and let's say you have it communicate every hour. So every hour it will send you the humidity information to your gateway. Well, if it's efficient enough, the battery can last for years. So as a farmer, you wouldn't have to care about that thing for years, and you would get all the information. Now, let's say maybe, for example, at some point, as you go with your machine over your land, maybe you hit it, right? You break it or whatever. Because the cost is quite low, typically for a sensor, it's also relatively easy and cheap to replace it again and to have it like reconnected to your network. So also this makes it interesting for example, a farmer, that even if something happens with it, replacing it, it's yeah, you will not go bankrupt over it. Of course, there are also like very specific sensors or very sensitive sensors. They may be more expensive, yeah, but usually you will not put those in the ground or something. Yeah, you will hang them somewhere safe.
That's for sure. Well, thank you so much for giving so many details. It was really interesting. And you already mentioned your products. I would like to go deeper in that way. Your product has managed to secure a substantial $10 million investment, right? Could you explain the key factors that contributed to this success, and how did the incorporation of software enhance its appeal both to RAKwireless and your investors?
All right, well, that's a big question. So firstly, the investment is in the company, not in the product, but in the company. And basically, like, investors invest because they see a future in something, right? And I believe everyone agrees that IoT is here to stay, and it will only become more and more important. I believe the key here is like making IoT become a part of our daily lives. In some cases, I think it already is, but without really being reminded every time that you're dealing with technology, right? It is just there. It goes automatically. It measures something. Maybe you have some AI behind it that is taking an action based on those measurements, but you don't have to think about it. It's there. It's acting automatically, and so on. And I believe that is what at least our investors believe in. Also, it's like it already serves, and it will only serve a more and more fundamental place in our society. With all the connectivity that we have nowadays, this is just a very nice addition to it, and it will help us to make things smarter, and also more efficient. There are more and more like initiatives from governments, from the European Union, you name it, that relates to like lower energy consumption, using solar, using battery, trying to figure out what are the best times of days to do a certain action, right? With all of this, IoT can help to measure. So yeah, that is to get back at your question. That is the main reason why investors believe why IoT and why RAK is on the right track. And then your second question, I believe, was about software, right?
Exactly, yes. How it actually helped
Yeah.
to appeal both to RAKwireless and investors.
Yeah, so basically, when it comes down to the software, let me then focus on our gateway, okay? So for our LoRaWAN gateway, in the beginning, the only way to manage it was one by one. So people would set up an individual connection with the gateway. Typically, such a thing is done through VPN, and that's how they would manage it. But you can already guess, if you have 100 gateways, you have to log into each gateway separately. That's a lot of work, and
yeah, that's
no one wants to do that, right? And if you want to deploy more and more, one by one, it's just not going to work. So that's where we recognize that need, and that's where we started to think and build on a fleet management platform, which we call WisDM. And at the same time, this was also our first customer focused piece of software that, differently from before, something would always run on our gateway, but this would actually run in the cloud, and that was the first software that we developed. Yeah.
Well, as we are stepping actually into the client-facing software topic, could you elaborate on the development challenges you encountered and the strategies you employed to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so actually, I joined RAK right around this moment where the company started to think about, okay, we would like to do this, but we have no idea how. Like, because all the domain knowledge is in hardware development and the software that runs on this hardware, which we call embedded software. But when it comes to like web applications or mobile applications, there was no domain knowledge, or let's say very little domain knowledge about this. That's where I came in. And that's where I started to think more about, okay, how should this application look like, right? And who is the customer? What are their needs? And how I'm going to build this, right? So our company is headquartered in China, and well, there are lots of people and lots of engineers in China. And but as I had a specific like stack in mind that I wanted to use, And this tech was, at least at that time, not very popular yet in China. So typically it was also more difficult to find developers for such tech. And so that's where we started to look like, okay, say if we cannot find them in China, is it possible to find them somewhere else, right? And that's how we started to browse, like to see what other options were out there. Yeah.
I see. Well, as you're stepping into the topic of the staffing, right? It's really important. Everybody knows that building up the right team with the right skill set is definitely pivotal, right? And how quick did it take you to assemble a team of engineers with the relevant experience? Maybe there were some approaches or criteria you used to ensure the required skill set of the specialists for your project and for this DM.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So yeah, we have taken our time to check out different parties, right? And every party has like a different approach. And I wouldn't say one approach, like one is good and one is bad. I think it just depends on what you're looking for as a person and also what you're looking for as a company. And you know, I'm someone with a plan, and I like clarity and I like to organize things. So let's say if a party would come to me and say, "Oh, yeah, this would be roughly how we would have it in mind," and you know, other things we can decide later. Yeah, that wouldn't be a good start for me. So um, I looked for someone or for a team that would be willing to think along, even in pre-sales, but think along already, and come up with ideas and like to explore from there. Because look, there will always be some sort of investment, right? Mostly in
Right.
this scenario in terms of time, but that's not only from their side; it's also from my side, right? We both invest our time and trying to make it work out. And well, I did that with several parties, and eventually, yeah, Yalantis came out as the best choice for this specific project. Yeah.
No, it's great to hear that. Thank you for explaining how it went. But if we dive deeper into the software development process, we know that it constantly evolves, right? You can't be just creating a solution and the technologies around you are just waiting to evolve as well. They're always and constantly developing. Maybe there were some technologies, practices during your project that constantly evolved and you had to adapt to them. Maybe there were some transformations that you had to get accustomed to, anything like that?
Yeah. Well, like from the beginning, like from a technology side, our idea was that we wanted to have a serverless architecture, and we have had quite some discussion about this with Yalantis also, because especially back then, you know, the serverless architecture was relatively new. Not too many people had experience with that. We had some people on our side with the needed knowledge about it, and yeah, it took some convincing, but eventually we convinced Yalantis that at least for our project, the serverless way was the way to go. And basically, the way we worked together was that the serverless architecture was designed by us in collaboration with Yalantis, because Yalantis knew what they needed to do inside the application, and we just try to make the serverless architecture adopt as good as possible to those needs. And well, now we are a few years further, and looking back, I think we did pretty well. Yeah, it's the good thing. The reason also why we wanted to run a serverless architecture was because we wanted it to be scalable, without having to, you know, deploy it on another machine again, all those things. We didn't want that. We wanted to have a completely scalable application that would scale up when we need it and scale down when we don't need it, or when our customers don't need it, to be like cost efficient, but moreover just performance wise, be ready for whatever will be thrown at us.
This is great. Well, you've already touched the topic of scalability. That's what I actually wanted to ask about next. So is the serverless architecture the only, or maybe one of the many solutions that help your solution and help your product accommodate hundreds of thousands of IoT devices effectively? Anything else that could contribute to reliability and scalability of your solution?
Oh, well, of course, the infrastructure is at the basic of all of it, right? But as good as your infrastructure may be on paper, you still need to test it, right? So I would say about, I think like 8 months, something like that, 8 months into the project, we decided that it may be good to look into performance testing. Because our product is meant for the enterprise market. And we said we wanted to be scalable. If we want to be scalable, we need to know how it performs under pressure, under lots of pressure, right? With 10,000s of devices, like end devices, gateways, you name it. So that's what we did. Yeah, so we built, together with Stellantis, a very sophisticated performance testing environment. And for every release that we do, we basically run it through all sorts of tests with very high numbers that right now we don't even believe users will deploy, but still we do it because we just want to go to the limit and see how far we can go and make sure that we can make it perform as good as possible. Yeah.
Well, now that's what I call client care, going way beyond, right? To see that it's definitely going to work for them. Thank you. That's a really detailed explanation. Well, as you mentioned that there is a collaboration between your team and Stellantis team, right? There's definitely the aspect of the knowledge transfer, right? It has to be done properly for project continuity. And could you describe the process that you employ to transfer crucial insights to your in-house team back to Stellantis? Maybe the process was seamless, or there were some challenges. Maybe there were some things that possibly our audience needs to know about when thinking about outsourcing and establishing the collaboration process, specifically in the knowledge transfer.
Yeah, this definitely it takes time. Look, as there is at least in our project, there was a lot of domain knowledge from our side to transfer to them about LoRa, about how our system works, right? Lots of things. And yeah, all you need for that is time. So yes, that means in the beginning, you're paying and you don't have a result. True, because you're just talking and yeah, that also costs money, right? But it's okay. It's needed in order for your team to do the work. So yeah, we have, I didn't count them, but I know many hours of talks with the business analysts, with our engineers, with me, to build up that knowledge domain. And well, I think by now the business analysts at Stellantis are IoT experts. Because
I guess thanks to you.
Thanks to the team at RAK. Yeah, it's we had lots of conversations, but because of this, I think we were also they could have a complete understanding of like who is the customer, how do they use it, right, and how does this technology work, and all these things combined, only then you can build a solid solution. Of course, developing, I wouldn't say it's the easy part, but that like is the coding part, right? But the logic behind it, it's so important. And yeah, you just need to take the time to build that. But once you have done it right, you don't have to redo it later again, right? So it's there to stay. Yeah, I believe well, we're improving every day, but I believe so far so good.
Well, thank you so much, especially for the kind words as well. I guess we are running out of time, but there is the very last question I would like to ask you. It's about the people who are thinking of adopting the LoRaWAN technology for their business needs. What advice would you give them at first place?
Well, yeah, I think I gave a little bit of the advice already. Like as much as I would like you to use LoRaWAN, I believe firstly you need to define like what am I trying to do, right? Am I trying to measure something, or am I trying to do something else? And where will that be? And who will be using it, right? What are the expectations also from the user perspective? And then to analyze, okay, which technologies fit with that? And well, hopefully, LoRaWAN can be a fit. But there are also plenty of others. So I would say, yeah, do good research first, and then pick your technology. That can be LoRa, that can be something else, but eventually you want something that works for you. You don't want to work for the technology, right? So
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Roy. Well, it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for the insights you've provided.
thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. Today we explored the future of the LoRaWAN technology, explained its use cases, why it can be a true discovery for the IoT businesses, how its implementation in software product can increase your product value, what are the challenges behind. So many things we have covered, and so many things possibly we can talk about for hours, I guess. But I know that we will have more time and more sessions, and I hope that we will meet you again, Roy, to discuss things about IoT. I'd like to thank you and everyone for joining us for this session. If we didn't cover the questions you had to us, feel free to reach out to us through our email, hello@jalantys.com. Use our LinkedIn channel as well. Find us, Jalantys, on LinkedIn. Find us on YouTube or on our website, jalantys.com. Would be really glad to talk about IoT, and I guess we'll be happy to provide some more insights. For those who are looking to delve deeper, I'll be sending out a list of online resources on the IoT solutions for mobility, logistics, and beyond, for agriculture, and a lot of other useful and interesting materials. Feel free to request them. And if you're inspired by today's session, I encourage you to dive deeper in the diversity of the IoT connectivity solutions and consider the LoRaWAN as well as other technologies for your business. And don't forget to share your products with us. Your progress is really interesting, and we would like to learn more about it. And thank you again for being a part of the tech leadership conversation today. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.